welcome back to another Reddit stories video. If you want to go ahead and get your story read, please go ahead and send them in. I'd love to read them. Other than that, let's get straight into it, right? Um, Today's video was sent in from a guy who's a tutor, right? Um, if you don't know, right? He is a tutor in China, right? He teaches kids how to go ahead and pass this placement test, right? And it's a very important placement test. It basically determines, right, if you can get into college or not, right? It's similar to like the SAT, where it says like what kind of college you can get into, but it's more, right? It's determining what kind of high school you can get into, what kind of you know if you can even get in, right? Because like if you get a bad SAT score, you'll still get into colleges, right? It's just like you're gonna have to start a community and then work your way up to a 4-year, right? It's a little bit more of a challenge, but right, with this test, like you can't get in if you don't do well. And it's doing really well, right? And they justify it because like, oh, why go ahead and dedicate so much resources to people who aren't going to do well in school, right? But it's an important test, right? Very important, like very stressful. And there's two of them, right? One for getting into high school, one for getting into college, right? And so like in middle school, they're going ahead and practicing for this test, and then once they get into high school, it's like all about this second test. And he has a group of people who help people train for these tests, and right, that's like his main job, where he's going ahead and training people to take both these tests. And so he went ahead and he taught kids how to take both these tests. He was more focused on the high school test, getting into high school. But, right, he went ahead and he was teaching this one kid all about this test, right? And he was going back and forth with this kid for a long time, like, oh, this is how you take this part, right? This is how you do this math. And it was, kind of difficult to go ahead and train this kid to go and do all this different math, right? And you get it, right? Some of these, like, it's not long-term division, but like crazy math, right? And like even teaching the kids how to get into high school, it's the same level as teaching like a 12th grader. So like you're teaching a 12-year-old how to do math that an 18-year-old is doing here. So these are intense math problems, and he knows that, and he's here in America, like, teaching these kids over the internet, right? And he went ahead and he said, like, okay, right, some of these problems are extremely difficult, right? And he gets it, but, he has to teach these kids how to do it, because if they don't do it right, they could end up failing and not getting into a good college. And so he was responsible for teaching these kids how to do it, right? And it's kind of hard for a 12-year-old to get very into being able to learn how to go ahead and do these math problems, right? It's very difficult to sit down with a 12-year-old and teach them like how to go ahead and do X, Y, and Z, right? But he was responsible for teaching them. And so he went ahead and he would go down at the end of the year to China. And he would be like from December to May teaching these kids, right, in person, because that's like you're taking the tests in May, right? He's going to be there and he's going to be going ahead and teaching you how to do it, right? And so he would go ahead and teach these kids how to do these problems, and he would be there. And throughout the whole year, he's had this problem with these kids, right? And so one of the main kids, right, at the beginning of the year, he was like, he had a very rich father who was an executive, right? He ran um their version of Tesla, right? Um, but if you guys don't know, right, they don't have nepotism in China, but he was acting like they did, right? In China, it's like more of an elected position for being an executive. And, sure, nepotism does play a role in elections. Like, hey, if your father and his father before him were both executives, you're probably going to be an executive. But you have to be somewhat intelligent, right? And so it's, even more important to get this kid into these colleges because, like, you have a grand future ahead of you where you're going to be leading, a company probably. And, he would go ahead and teach these kids all about doing it. And so this one kid, he wasn't taking any of this seriously, right? But this kid, he would be not very serious, even though like his father wanted him to pass like really badly. And he had a specialized tutor in each one. Right, every single one of these ones had a specialized tutor, right? So you would go ahead and have one for the math, one for science, that kind of thing. And so he would be forced to teach this kid history, right? And so he couldn't get this kid to sit down and like actually listen to the different dates. He wouldn't be able to teach them about any of this. Right, and these are important dates, right? This is like about World War II, and so like these dates are coming up, but the kid wouldn't do that. Like he wouldn't sit down and listen, but he probably should have, right? And the dad's paying him to go ahead and do this, and he realized like, oh shoot, this kid is gonna struggle, right? And so he's talking to the dad like, hey, the kid is not sitting down and listening, right? If you have any like tips to go ahead and get him to help, like I would love to, right? And so then he would go ahead, the dad, he hired a team of people to sit down and make him sit there, right? Because he would go ahead, start it up, and like the kid would walk away from the computer, right? Because this is like over a Zoom call kind of thing. But the kid would just like start up the Zoom lesson and leave. But like they were trying to work with this kid, and so it was starting with like the dad went ahead and hired a team of people to go ahead and sit down with the kid and make sure he was sitting down. Then it was like, okay, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pre-record the lessons, right? And then like you're gonna go ahead and text me like, hey, you got any questions? I'll answer them. And that didn't go well because the kid, instead of going ahead and actually watching the videos, he would go ahead and just text him random questions like, oh, right, what kind of fish do you think you would be, kind of questions. Like none of these matter, right? It's not about not about the resources, but the kid was doing that kind of thing, right? And when the kid was supposed to sit there, he would just go to sleep. And, the people who were there with him, they would go ahead and like poke him, trying to make him wake up. But the kid, he wouldn't listen. And so it's like a big deal. Like, oh, you have to go ahead and learn this stuff. Right. But it didn't end up working out very well with this kid. And so like when December came around, like he would do these placement tests, and his score on this was lower than everyone else by like 50%, right? It was bad. And so this kid, he scored like a 10. It was like, oh shoot. And he texted dad like, here's this kid's test, like he's not listening. And everyone knows this is a big deal. You're not going to be able to get into a good high school. You don't get in a good high school, you don't get a good life, right? And so they're sitting down with this kid like, hey, this is a big deal, please, we're begging you, just listen to him for a few months. It'll be over, right? But they didn't go ahead and continue doing that, right? And so like they scheduled double the meetings with these tutors. They did everything they could, right? And so he was like, okay. Before he got there, he gave everyone a break. And so he talked to the dad like, hey, maybe less tutoring might actually work better, right? You know, sure, right now the kid's not paying attention at all. So, like, if you give him a tutoring session and he's basically effectively getting 10% out of it, but you're giving him 80 hours a week tutoring, that doesn't make sense. Because now you're still only getting 80%, right? Kind of thing. Was like the logic. Where if you go ahead and give him like one really good tutoring session, could be even better. Right, but he ended up going ahead and talking to the dad, like, hey, give him a week-long break. Then we go ahead and then I'll be there with the kid. You don't have to go ahead and hire in that second group of people to go and watch the kid. I'll be there. And we can go ahead and figure out, okay, what is the best effective way to teach this kid all about history? And so this kid, he would go ahead and basically not listen at all. And like, first day back, they met at a cafe. And the kid, he would just run around the store like a psychopath. Right? You know, and so he'd be like, oh, my dad owns this store, like, I can do whatever I want. Right? You know, like, screw you, kid. You know, this tutor, you don't matter. Because my daddy's an executive. I can get whatever I want. I don't have to worry about anything in life. It's like, okay, but you're not an executive. The dad isn't going to be able to go ahead and leave you absolutely everything in the world. You're not going to be able to be doing anything good in life if you don't pass this test. And he explained that to this kid, and he's like, I know, but I don't care. Because at the end of the day, my dad is going to leave me enough. Right? Sure, I might struggle in my 20s, but my dad, he's going to go ahead and die at some point. By the time you're in, like, your mid-30s, you're going to go ahead and have the world. Like, who cares? Right? You know, you'll put up with it for 15 years if you know by the time you get to your mid-30s, you're going to have absolutely everything. Right? Or if you don't have everything in your name, you're going to have enough where you can go ahead and do that, because the parents are going to be like a nursing home kind of deal. Right? You're going to have a lot of power by the time you're in your mid-30s. And this kid was like, hey, you know what? That might be right. But if you don't, right? Let's say the parents donate everything. And they're like, he's not going to do that. Like, but it's possible, right? You don't know. What if your dad isn't saving anything? You don't know what your dad is doing. It's like, yeah, you're right, but I don't care. Right? It's like, you need to care, man. It's like, okay. You know, what if, like, it's a really bad cancer and your dad's just gonna go ahead and put all the money towards that? Like, you don't know what's gonna happen. But the kid didn't listen, and so he ended up recording a good bit of this conversation of him just saying, like, he was gonna go ahead and wait for his dad to die to get the money. That was his, like, life goal right there. And he showed the kid, like, hey, this is what's gonna happen. And, like, you either have to go ahead and at least pass my test. I don't really give a shit if you pass the rest of them. I'm gonna show your dad that I'm a good tutor. And if not, I'm gonna go ahead and show your dad this video. He's like, oh, like, now you gotta listen. Because if you don't listen, now you lose everything before you even get it. Right? And then you'll want to have passed that test. Because if you don't pass this test, now you get into a bad school and your dad doesn't give you money, that's a problem. So pass this test, kid. And he shows this kid this, and he's like, okay, do it. Right? Pass this test. I'll delete it all. I don't care. I'll tell your dad that we're not going to go ahead and take care of you getting into the college classes. And, you know, this will be the last time you ever have to deal with us. Like, okay. Right, and so he ends up locking in for this social studies test. And, you know, he's a man of his word. He deleted the video. And so now he did send it to the kid, like, hey, you know, you might want to look back at this when you're older. Like, this is kind of an extreme take. I wouldn't want to do this, but, like, here you go. Right? You know? And so he told the kid, like, hey, it's probably not a good idea to think like this, but, you know, you want to do it? Go for it. and so he ended up deleting the video off of his stuff. The guy ended up not taking him back for the college classes. We don't really know what the kid's gonna do in the future, but probably just, you know, die. Wait for his parents to die kind of thing, which is a sad life to live. But if you guys have a story of your own, please submit them through the Discord or Instagram. I'd love to read them. Other than that, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.